Good evening. My name is Joshua Idehen and welcome to Fail Better. This week we have Dean Atta, author of Black Flamingo and a BBC Channel 4 Attitude magazine regular. This is a weekly poetry broadcast to discuss how we can best use failure as a catalyst for change. And we love connecting with some old friends and new friends, which is why we've made this massive list of top-notch poets to entertain you for 15 minutes, followed by a 45 minutes Twitter conversation using the hashtag FailBetterPINC. That's hashtag FailBetterPINC. Please click like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to be updated about forthcoming episodes. Sit back, wash your hands, and dig into some top-notch poetry. It's 15 minutes. Enjoy!
Good evening. My name is Dean Atta, and I'm going to be reading some poetry to you over dinner this evening. So, welcome to my dinner table. I am in Glasgow, in Scotland, and wherever you are, I hope you're sitting comfortably and I hope you're ready for me to share. So, I'm going to tell you a bit about the poems I'm going to read to you and also kind of give you a bit of context around why I've selected them as well. So I'm going to start with a poem from my debut collection, I Am Nobody's Nigger. And I think this also resonates with a James Baldwin kind of quote, I am not your Negro. And people have mentioned a lot about James Baldwin to me when they heard my poem. And at the time, I hadn't read any James Baldwin. I have now, and I see kind of some of the resonance and some of the similarities in the sentiment of what we're saying. But it was quite interesting at the time of writing and first sharing the poem to not have known about James Baldwin. So that's been really interesting in my kind of development as a writer and kind of placing myself within, other writers of colour and queer writers of colour in particular. So I wrote this poem kind of as a, I guess, statement or message to hip hop artists that use the N word in their music. And kind of similarly to James Baldwin, he wrote a lot about America, but he wrote about America when he was living in Europe, which I think was really interesting. And I think as a British person, kind of viewing America, I can see the influence it has on us. I can see how different we are and lots of the similarities as well. And I think the N word is one that translates badly from the UK to America, or the other way around, I should say. And it is a word that I don't like, and I kind of express that in this poem. I am nobody's nigger. Rappers, when you use the word nigger, remember that's one of the last words Stephen Lawrence heard, so don't tell me it's a reclaimed word. I am nobody's nigger, so please let my ancestors rest in peace, not turn in their graves in Jamaican plantations or the watery graves of the slave trade, thrown overboard into the Middle Passage just for insurance claims. They were chained up on a boat, as many as they could manage and stay afloat, stripped of dignity and all hope, awaiting their masters and European names. But the sick and the injured were dead weight to toss, and Lloyd's of London would cover that cost. I am nobody's nigger, so you can tell Wheezy and Drake that they made a mistake. I am nobody's nigger now, so you can tell Kanye and Jigga I am not a nigger in Paris. I'm not a nigger in London. I'm not a nigger in New York. I'm not a nigger in Kingston. I'm not a nigger in Accra or a nigger with attitude in Compton, because I don't want to be called your nigger. How were you raised on Public Enemy and still became your own worst enemy? You killed hip hop and resurrected headless zombies that can't think for themselves or see where they're going or quench the bloodlust because there's no blood flowing in their hearts, just in the streets. But they don't give a damn. As long as they're eating, their hearts ain't beating, they're as cold as ice, bling. Because they would put money over everything. Money over self-respect and self-esteem, or empowering the youth to follow their dreams. Stacking paper because it's greater than love, it seems. Call me nigger because you're scared of what? Brother, means. To know that we share something unspeakable. To know that as high as we rise, we are not seen as equal. To know that racism is institutional thinking, and that nigger is the last word you heard before a lynching. So the next poem I want to share with you is called Young, Black and Gay. James Baldwin isn't always written about as a gay man. I believe he was, but it's not always at the forefront of how we think of him. And I think that's just a sign of the times. Like, he was part of the civil rights movement for Black people. And I don't know if at that time, him being gay was something that people wanted to kind of like highlight, if it kind of like detracted from, you know, the cause, or kind of was a separate cause entirely. I think having, you know, an intersectional approach is much better. And I'm really glad we can have one these days in our approach to activism. So this poem, Young, Black and Gay, is one that I feel really proud to have written. And kind of, I do it a lot in schools. And when I share this poem in schools, I ask young people to think about 3 things they're proud to be. And that's always interesting. So if you want to think of 3 things that you're proud to be, do share that with us when we discuss afterwards online. Young, Black and Gay. My people are many and few, subdivisions of me and you, substantial people sometimes called subhuman, Negroes, faggots and all the utes them. Don't think your rights came overnight. So many people had to fight to gain anything like equality. We ain't there yet, but we're gonna be. Institutions instigate internal indignation. We brought up and betrayed by this nation. Isms and schisms of my Babylon home have held this king back from his throne. But you can fight the system from within. Yes, you can befriend sinners and still not sin. See me? I went to university, not even the first in my family. I'm from a long line of scholars. Trace me back to Greece and Africa, through Cyprus and Jamaica. I don't write to be pretentious, but my vocab and vision leave you defenseless, trying hard to avoid the cliches, but everything worth saying's been said these days. I'm ironic, and yet I'm so on it. So if you want to test me, let me hear your phonics. I'm not a battle MC, I'm a community defender. Young, Black and Gay, you best remember. Alright, so that was also from I'm Nobody's Nigger. And now I'm going to share from The Black Flamingo, which is my newest work, which is a young adult novel written in verse for teenagers. So this one I'm going to share first is called I Come From. I always get asked the question, where are you from? I don't know if you get asked that question a lot too. But depending on who's asking, it can sound completely different, the question. Now that I live in Scotland, it's quite an innocent question from most people. But when I was growing up in London, where I was born, it felt really quite a loaded question when people would ask me where I was from. So, I come from shepherd's pie and Sunday roast, jerk chicken and stuffed vine leaves. I come from travelling through my taste buds, but loving where I live. I come from a home that some would call broken. I come from DIY that never got done. I come from waiting by the phone for him to call. I come from waving the white flag to loneliness. I come from the rainbow flag and the Union Jack. I come from a British passport and an ever-ready suitcase. I come from jet fuel and fresh coconut water. I come from crossing oceans to find myself. I come from deep issues and shallow solutions. I come from a limited vocabulary but an unrestricted imagination. I come from a decent education and a marvellous mother. I come from being given permission to dream but choosing to wake up instead. I come from wherever I lay my head. I come from unanswered questions and unread books, unnoticed effort and undelivered apologies and thanks. I come from who I trust and who I have left. I come from last year, and I don't notice how I've changed. I come from looking in the mirror and looking online to find myself. I come from stories, myths, legends and folk tales. I come from lullabies and pop songs, hip hop and poetry. I come from griots, grandmothers and her storytellers. I come from published words and strangers' smiles. I come from my own pen, but I see people torn apart like paper, each a story or a poem that never made it into a book. And I think I'll share one more with you from this same book. So this is from the Black Flamingo, and it's the sighting of the Black Flamingo, which happens in Cyprus. The character Michael in the book is 16, I believe, at this time, and it happens like this. Grandad goes back inside. He draws my attention to the news. The story, a black flamingo has landed on the island. An expert on screen explaining it is the opposite of an albino. Too much melanin, he says. Camera pans the salt lake full of pink, but the eye is drawn to that one black body in the flamboyance. Got another bit I want to jump to. I want to be a pink flamingo. Pink, definitely pink. I want my feathers to match the hue you imagine. I want to blend in, nothing but flamingo-ness. David Attenborough would say, here we see the most typical flamingo, though I don't want to be the most, just typical. A wrapping paper pattern. I don't want to stand apart, nothing different about my parts. My beak, just a beak. My head, just a head. My neck, body, wings, simply fit for purpose. Standing on one leg, just like the rest. Pink, definitely pink. The following evening, my beach towel and shorts dry on the balcony. Couples on mopeds ride past the house. Dogs walk humans before dinner. Grandad coughs violently, then lights another cigarette. Grandma calls us in to eat. The Black Flamingo is on the news again. I pick the dining chair facing the TV. Grandad asks, why does it matter if he's black? Adding, the other flamingos don't care. And I am certain what he's saying is I love you. So for me, it was important to kind of think about that metaphor of the black flamingo. For myself and for the character Michael, it's a way of kind of recognizing you stand out, maybe you are different, but that difference can be celebrated. So in Michael's story, he goes on to use that idea of the black flamingo and that metaphor to become a drag performer, and he wears feathers and makeup and heels and celebrates that difference in a really flamboyant way. And so that was kind of my way of kind of looking at blackness and also queerness, and in that intersectional approach, giving you something really fabulous. And so I think I really wanted to kind of just end by saying that, when I think of James Baldwin's work, I think of the way he definitely uses blackness and as a lens to look at his country, America, but also the world. You know, he came over to the UK and gave a very famous speech, and which got a lot of attention. And he's also, lived in France, in Paris, and had a kind of global perspective. And I think for me as a writer, the internet's great for kind of connecting with people around the world when you can't physically travel, but also for discovering voices from around the world. And I think the Black diaspora, the LGBT community around the world who are writing poetry, we connect with each other. And I think that's really special, the fact that we have technology today to bring us together. And we can look now at writers like James Baldwin, Audre Lorde, and see the resonances that they still have with our current lives and struggles. But also we can see that we have a voice that we can use, and there are less gatekeepers now from our voices getting out there. I'm really glad to be able to share my work with you today, and I'm really excited to have a conversation with you about it afterwards online. So I hope you've enjoyed listening, and I hope to speak to you on the internet.
And that was that. Now head over to Twitter to carry on the conversation using the hashtag FailBetterPINC. Drop us a line about how failure has helped your lives in positive and negatives and general ways. Head over to our Patreon if you like what we're doing. Become a subscriber and support us. Support poetry in the city. And don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to be informed about forthcoming episodes.